Leadership is the component of your life which you lean upon in order to prioritize the events and objectives in your life which you hold close to the vest. They're your non-negotiables, something you're not willing to sacrifice at any cost. Putting such a list in sequential order takes time, effort, and somewhat of enthusiasm, which you may need direction in order to cultivate. If this sounds like you, today is your lucky day because you stumbled upon the comprehensive conversation I had on leadership with professional and transformational speaker Avi Wolfson. When it comes down to the brass tacks of the matter, Wolfson speaks to colleges, businesses, and audiences alike with one simple mission in mind. He speaks to inspire success. Yes, indeed, my friends, you have the sense of empowerment ingrained in all of you to overcome life's most challenging obstacles in order to see prosperity on the other side of your life roadmap. However, you must put in the personal and hard work it requires in order to see tangible results. And Wolfson is the man who helped in that very journey. If you work in a corporate environment or in higher education at any level, this is a conversation you cannot afford to miss. So without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to talk to you about leadership and unlocking potential. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's really an honor to be here, and I'm very excited to speak with you.
Absolutely. No. I know that you're all about helping people sort of unlock their fullest potential and unlock the champion that lies within them as a motivational speaker. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the good work that you do, my friend.
Absolutely, yes. So I am a speaker, and I help losers discover the champion within themselves. So I'm all about helping individuals that are struggling with mental health, people that don't believe in themselves, or struggling to succeed in business. Anybody that's been there, because that's how I've felt a large part of my life and things that I struggled with. So helping others to me is very important. There were times in my adolescence where I wish I had had more help and, people to look to, but I really didn't. So it's so important to me that, individuals, especially younger folks have good support systems in place. There's a good saying a quote that says, it's easier to create stronger children than to fix broken men or women. So that falls in line with, how important it is and in terms of development.
Yeah, absolutely. Just building on that point, Avi, I know that you help people by leading by example in your own way, by paving the pathway to both hope, inspiration, support, and forgiveness. So while also challenging the way we think about people. So tell me about leading from a position of hope
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. Like I said, growing up, I struggled a lot academically. School was a place where I was bullied. Really, just always finished last. Just constant reinforcement that I felt inadequate and less than everybody else. It wasn't until I got older that I realized, wow, I'm actually brilliant, and I'm capable of doing a lot of things, and I can live to my fullest potential. And that grades aren't just the only thing. But we're all dealt with a hand, right? We're all dealt with cards when we come into this world, and we have to do our best to play with the cards we're dealt with. So, struggling, and then giving the strength to individuals to strive and survive. My way of doing that, that I discovered from my own self, was the process I created called BAC, which is balancing realism with optimism, activating your spark, and changing your narrative. Those are the things that really helped me to get ahead. And I didn't discover those till later in life, but that actually was life changing for me. And I believe it's that logic and thinking of having that process down that is going to be, it's been helpful to myself. And I also believe is going to help a lot of people. That's my big idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Avi, I also know that you're big in helping people work through their mental health challenges and really helping them to get to the other side of prosperity, my friend. So let's dive into the subject of mental health, my friend, and why do you think it's so important to shine a light on the importance of managing our mental health effectively? What are your thoughts there?
It's so important and it's not talked about. I think there's still a large piece of stigmatism, and I think that especially like in the workforce and even in personal life, there's this idea that like, oh, you don't go there, you don't talk about these things, but these things should be talked about, right? Because if you have a broken leg or an arm, you can see that injury, but you can't see the scars and the pain of mental health. You can't look into the mind of somebody. We can't show that yet, but it's very much real. And if we want to live in a humane and civil society and where we help each other and do what the human thing is to do, which is be civilized, right? We're not animals, then we should be doing everything we can to help each person live to their fullest potential. And that means acknowledging and helping people that do struggle with mental health and giving them the tools that they need to to live a happy and successful life where they thrive and do well. And every person is capable of that. But we are human and we do need help and we do need support. There is not one person on this earth who did it all by themselves. Not Jeff Bezos, not Bill Gates. No, everybody needs people. They need help, and just mental health, as we can see, is a major issue because we've seen lack of that manifest in very ugly ways, and it's so important, like that we do give people the support and tools that they need so they can flourish.
Yeah, and building on that point, Avi, I'm curious to ask you about building a community of support or a
Mm.
tribe of support and how important you think that is.
Yeah, I mean, it was very important for me. I've been in group therapy. I have a therapist, and it's maybe not the most glorifying thing to say, but you know what? A lot of it just has to do with how society perceives people with mental health, conditions that they deal with, right? So it's really just about acknowledging it and recognizing that, hey, I need help. I need to do this. That's what takes courage, right? Hiding it and straying away from it. I've done that for a very long time. That doesn't help. That's throwing that's throwing the dirt under the rug. And you can keep doing that, but eventually that's going to pile up. It's going to fester and it's going to get really ugly, and then eventually it's going to get knocked over and just it's going to explode. So uh, it's so important that people have communities and places they go to. It's been extremely important for me. And again, I'm not like proud to say that, but it's important that I do. Right? It's okay to ask for help. We all need help. We're human, and whether that's for mental health or some other area or hardship that we face, it's super important that we all have a community or place that we can go to in a healthy way express what we're going through and to get the support and tools that we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And Avi, I want to build on your last understand and ask you about the importance of strength through vulnerability and really growing from being vulnerable because I know it's an important part of the work that you do, teaching people, as you said, that it's okay to sort of bring down those emotional walls. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely, Kevin. Yes. So vulnerability is a very interesting topic because, especially for me growing up, sharing your thoughts and feelings, especially as a man, is oftentimes perceived as a weakness. But I'm a big proponent of Brene Brown and her research, and her in her research, what she found is that vulnerability is our greatest measurement of courage. To be vulnerable is to let ourselves be seen, and doing that is most courageous thing a person can do, right? Because we're all human, and maybe if we don't talk about it, but we all have things that we struggle with, and being able to openly talk about those things is really important. And also to add on to that, it's also a form of authenticity as well, right? Um, these things exist in us, and hiding them is does not help at all. Being vulnerable is what gives strength. It's given tremendous strength to me, and I didn't think that it would, but it absolutely does because it's confronting the cards that we have that we're dealt with, and maybe that hand is not great, or there are some areas that we would like to be different, but they aren't. And surrounding ourselves with the right people, that's another piece to this too, is we need to be careful about who we share, who we're vulnerable with, and who we share that with, because not everybody is the right person to do that. Some people aren't emotionally available, or maybe somebody you don't know very well, and that can backfire really badly. So it's important to make sure that we surround ourselves with people that we trust and will be receptive to us when we are vulnerable. And does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm fascinated to also ask you what do you think it means to be a forward-thinking problem solver?
Yeah. So being a forward thinking problem solver is to recognize group think, right? So and having and then being able to put yourself in the shoes of others and really imagine and see their pains and struggles, no matter what they are, and seeing it from other people's point of view, and then being able to say, oh, okay, I can appreciate this. I didn't factor that in. This isn't just about my thinking. I need to consider other people's trains of thoughts and how we can combine and collaborate to find solutions that aren't just one-sided, but are combined with different people from different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. And Abid, do you think leadership and emotional intelligence are interconnected at all?
Yeah, I think that an exceptional and effective leaders, they all need to possess emotional intelligence. It's extremely important, and I think like a good example of that I could give would be back in the Civil War era with General Grant fighting General Lee's army. Right, General Lee was strategically, I think, a better general. He was very effective in battle, but General Grant had a bigger army, one that helped, but he had an emotional intelligence connection to his soldiers, and they led with him. He was in the trenches. He was there with them. He was an amazing leader, and because of that, we live in a free society. So that emotional intelligence, really connecting with people on a deeper level, is what allows us to have is what makes an effective leader and a good leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Abid, I'm wondering your thoughts also on the concept of leadership. I know you help people create sort of a toolbox so that they can have the tools to define their own version of success. So, a two-part question for you. How do you define leadership, and what do you think is a roadmap for really creating the tools to experience sustainable success?
Yeah, I think that for leadership, it's about swallowing pride, and more than that, it's about humility and humor too, right? If you want people to rally behind you, you have to have a sense of humility. You have to be relatable. People have to understand, and you need to be likable. And those are really crucial. And I think oftentimes, especially older trains of thoughts, are like that you work with can't be trusted. Give them an inch, she'll take you a mile. And that's a very old school train of thought. And I think realistically, when you're likable, when you're funny, when you have humility and can say, you know what, I could have done this differently, or you know what, I wish I'd done things this way, or thought, really just like taking other people's perspective and working collaboratively and saying and acting as though, maybe you don't know it all, but you're doing the best you can. I think is what brings about those great relations and great leadership.
Absolutely. And when we talk about creating that toolbox of tools to use to overcome obstacles out there, I'm curious, what do you think needs to be sort of ingrained in that toolbox so that people can experience success?
Yeah, I think for the toolbox, it really comes down to what what a person needs, right? We all have different needs. We all have different things that we struggle with. So I think the first step is understanding what it is that internally that we need, whether that's help with relationships, whether that's help with in a career or communicating or forming healthy relationships. So for me, if I struggle with one of those things, I'm going to seek out, I'm going to look for a mentor. I'm going to look for somebody that I can go to where an area I'm weak in, and then they can help me to get through that. Also, obviously, reading is really important. Um, I think that's really find the knowledge that you need to get help, because we don't know what we don't know. So, I mean, you don't know how to solve a problem. You know there's a problem, but you don't know how to solve it. To get those tools, you have to go to the right sources, and they're very much available. We've got YouTube. We've got people that you can reach out to be mentors. We can search online. We didn't always have these things, but now there's a huge, huge knowledge base of where we can go and find the tools we need. We can find the people that we need to look up to help us lead in the right way, to go in the right way and go down a path of finding success and tools to succeed and thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is, I look at the world when I started this in May of 2020, and I said that there's so much more tearing us apart than bringing us together. So I wanted to create sort of what I call bridges of unity, and hosting this podcast is one way that I do that. So when you look at the world today from just a societal and mental health perspective, what do you think is the key to creating those bridges of unity?
I think it comes, we need good leaders. And unfortunately, leaders that we have, especially in our country, it's been a real shame. It's been a disgrace. I think Dr. King would be very disappointed if he saw what was going on. I think Abraham Lincoln, I think our forefathers, they would all be very disappointed in what's going on. The way the people that we look up to at the highest level in politics, the people that run this country that are supposed to set the good example of how we lead as people and in a civil and American way, I think it's just a lot of attacking. It's about undermining. It's about all the things that we're taught bringing up into school to not do. And that's exactly what they're doing. It's a big game. There is no unity. There is no sharing of ideas. It's about shooting other people down, knocking down their towers to bring their towers up. And that is not the vision for that our forefathers had when this country was created. So I think that what it's going to take is collaboration. It's going to take humility. It's going to take laws to put in place so that there isn't skimming off the top. There isn't, people that hold a lot of, we're holding back technology and things from driving humanity forward, right? There's a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of people that want to keep things the way that they are because they don't want to give that up, right? And that's oftentimes what it takes. And so I think until we can get more leaders that can really be more bold and daring to say, to put their ego aside and say, you know what, we really need to prioritize mental health, and then actually following through with that and giving people the help and support and the tools that they need so we can live in a more civilized society where instead of knocking each other's down, we're helping to build each other's towers up.
Yeah,
That's,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
you know, um, so yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious how you define the whole notion of maximizing personal and professional fulfillment. How do you think those two things sort of intersect, and how do you define them?
So yeah, I think that when you say that, it makes me think of a couple of things. There's one is Maslow's hierarchy. So we look at the most basic level of psychological needs, food, shelter, all these things, and then at the top of that pyramid, we've got self-actualization, right? And that's where we all want to go. That's where we all want to reach, but not all of us get there, right? So there's another piece to that, which is the law of correspondence, which means the way we position ourselves internally reflects externally. For example, if you perceive yourself to be worthy, hardworking, and an asset to the world, you'll find yourself succeeding. Don't dress for the job that you have, but for the job that you want. And the one more piece to tack onto that is uh, the people that you surround yourself with. We need to be surrounded with people that help give us those opportunities or get us in the right mindset, right? Because, like, as an example, if you hang out with a band of thieves, chances are you're probably going to steal. If you hang out with a group of people that are successful business people, you're probably going to go in the right direction of running a successful business. So these three things are really important when it comes to advancement, seizing opportunities.
Yeah, and to that point, I truly believe that maximizing opportunities in life is a choice, right? And it's up to all of us to seize the opportunity for advancement. So when you look at seizing opportunity or maximizing it, what do you think is the key to pointing your life compass in the direction that you want to go?
It really comes down to an attitude. So we need people. You need to be somebody that wants that and to pursue it relentlessly. And I think that the best way I could put this is making a commitment and working towards it until you achieve it. That was said by Walt Disney. And to further reinforce that idea, Greg Reed had said, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. A plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. So that process needs to happen if we want to. Maybe that's not for everybody. Maybe some people want to live in a 9 to 5. Maybe some people don't. Maybe some people, they want to advance and they want to do things bigger and better. It comes down to a personal preference. I think most of us, we do want to get there. And to do that, we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to surround ourselves with the right people, being in the right professional groups. All these things are important and factor into reaching that end goal that we all want.
Yeah, absolutely. And Audrey, in the short time the two of us have been friends, I have sort of relayed to you the importance that I place on the concept of inclusion and acceptance of all. As you know, I have cerebral palsy, and I've worked my entire adult life to sort of level the playing field when it comes to equitable treatment and of those with disabilities like myself. So when you look at the concept of inclusion and acceptance, I wonder, well, what side of the fence or how do you define inclusion and acceptance for all?
I think it's extremely important. I think that there's just a lack of understanding And I think that obviously it's very clear in the short time I've known you, Kevin, you're a gentleman, you're a scholar, and you're a larger than life baller. And I say that because I see you and I see your greatness and I see your potential. And I can also relate in the sense that growing up, I was felt like I was just a loser and that I would never make anything of myself. But people don't see, like people say different things. We can't make everybody happy. We're not going to always have a good relationship with every person we meet. We're human, right? But we surround ourselves with the right people. It only takes one person to look at you or to look at me and say, I see you beyond just cerebral palsy, Kevin. I see you, Avi, beyond your bipolar disorder and depression. We have something tremendous to give to the world. And we need to know that first of all for ourselves and to also show people what we're capable of because like you, I've felt for most of my life like an underdog. And and that's not always fun, right? It's not fun to feel that way. Sometimes I want to fit in. And maybe you felt that way too, but there's a great saying by Dr. Seuss, which is, why fit in when you were born to stand out? And we were both meant to stand out. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking. That's why we have this conversation. We have something great to contribute to society. And maybe the way that society is built doesn't fit in with us, if that makes sense. But we're not like the average everyday person. And we're not the only ones. There's a lot of people like this. So we need to show what we're capable of and to bring strength and to also give hope and inspiration to others that have conditions like us and to let them know that they can be successful, they can thrive, they will succeed, even if the world is turned upside down.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always tell people to capitalize on the opportunity to be a trendsetter, right? Because
Absolutely.
the
Love that.
yeah, the only example that you have to reach, or the only level of expectations, I mean, I tell people all the time, the only level of expectations that you have to meet are your own, because if you don't have that baseline or sort of surface level expectation of yourself, it's hard to level up or measure up to others' expectations. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%, Kevin. I grew up filled, my whole life revolved around living to this expectation that was impossible. One, because I didn't believe in it, I didn't want it, but I was really forced to being put, forcing that square peg through a circular hole. It's not going to go through no matter how much you push it. And it's actually going to backfire and be really ugly. And that's like, trauma that I've had, other people have had. And then you got to, work on repairing. So that's really tough, but it's like you said, we're trailblazers and there's a lot to be said, a lot of good to be said about that and how we stand out and how we lead and help others and then build up the people that need the help that, you know, maybe don't have the support that they need. We have to be strong for them and bring out other people. And that to me is what a true leader is. And I want to distinguish between, oh, sorry, excuse me, not a true leader, a true champion versus just a champion. A champion is somebody who wins for themselves. They hold up a trophy and say, go me, look at me, I'm great. But a true champion is somebody who brings out the best in others. And there was something a boss of mine years ago said, which is that I agree with is true. You can't save the whole world. Even Superman can't save the whole world, but we can help the people around us in our lives. And we can build up other champions to be true champions, to help other people around them. We create a rippling effect where now that idea and notion is spread out so that we make true champions. And then to your first question, how do we do that? But that's how it's done. We need true champions, that people that don't just win for themselves, but they help those around them to become champions, and that keeps rippling and rippling.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obvious, being a speaker yourself, we share the same synergy in the fact that there's a real authentic connection when we speak to audiences and really see those breakthroughs when our messages get through. So I'm wondering, as a speaker and as a person yourself, individually, how would you define your defining moment of difference, both as a speaker and as an individual as well?
I think that I've been thinking a lot about victory and what that means, and it's at its core, victory is a feeling. It's not. It can be tangible, right? You've got a trophy, so it can be tangible, but it's a case by case basis for each person, and victory is important, right? Because that gives us momentum to propel us forward towards our goals and aspirations. So, what's important to me that I learned about victory is it's about keeping your victory glasses on, not actual glasses, just metaphorically speaking. Having glasses on where you, even if you don't do well at something or you fail, you can still have victories within that, if that makes sense. So you can have a takeaway. You can learn something you didn't know before, even if you weren't successful at the first attempt. So having your victory glasses on at all times helps you to see your wins and your victories. And when you have that, that can be very powerful in propelling you forward, so that when you do have big victories, you can appreciate them and continue using that motivation as momentum to propel you further towards your goals and aspirations.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to go back to something I asked you about earlier in terms of where we are in sort of our societal discourse. We, I don't have to tell you when you turn on the news, and this is coming from a news guy. I mean, I originally went to school to become a sports reporter, so I love
Wow,
reporting the news. But when you turn
awesome.
on the news today, spend 5 minutes watching the news, and you'll find out everything that's wrong with the world, right? So I'm curious to ask you, I mean, what's your greatest hope for the future, and how do you think you would define hope and prosperity and promise for the next generation?
Well, I'm with you on that one, Kevin. And that's why I stopped watching the news, because I don't like watching it. For every out of 100 stories, 99 of them are very negative. They're terrible things. It's people dying. It's people being killed. It's about the bad weather. And then you'll hear one minor story, or a story that will lead you to thinking that it's positive, but there's actually a very bad, sad, and dark story behind it. So I think that I'm not a fan of the news. I don't like it. With that said, the news is important. We need to be kept up to date. But the thing about the news is that they're all pushing a narrative, right? So we need to be cognizant of what is the narrative. What do they want to lead you to believe in the news? And this is why I don't like watching it. I want to do my own research and come to my own conclusion about what I'm seeing. I don't need the news to tell me how I should think or feel or believe about a story. And with that said, I think the way that we pave the way to a better society is that we have people coming forward with truthful news and news that does serve us. And maybe there needs to be more of because the news is very powerful. They have huge followings, and everybody watches them, and it really does influence the way people think. So it can be very dangerous too. And we know from other countries, being in controlling the news is how you control people. So having good leaders, people that we can go to in our communities that can focus on the positive rather than the negative, because it really clashes when you look at what we're told to do. Like, we're supposed to be happy, we're supposed to enjoy life is good, these are important things. Even if you don't feel good, you put on a smile anyways. It's about having a good attitude. It's about not being bitter or resentful, because no good leader is bitter or resentful. Those things do not help you. And in one of your interviews, I saw that I watched you with, I believe it was Carrie, and she had said giving some making poison and drinking it and expecting somebody else to die from it. That is bitterness at its core. And so we need to realize, what the news is doing, how we reframe that news, how we change that narrative to one that does serve us and does lead to self-fulfillment rather than just going for viewership. Oh, this story is going to be great. People are going to see this. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's dark. And you can see news reporters get excited about this because there are no more morals with the news. It's only about viewership and nothing else matters. And that's the reality of it. And from my perspective, I've seen this. You see these news reporters, they're excited talking about a homicide. That's not something people should be excited about. That's very sad. And and they're excited because, oh, this is great viewership. This will be good for my career. This will be good for me. So there is no mediation. There's just one agenda for the news. Even if they have to fabricate the story to get it for better views, they'll do it. So at the core, news is really a bad system. And I think that there should be more regulation, maybe by the government or in some way. But yeah, the news stations are pretty awful. That's why I don't watch the news either.
And I mean, I want to end on a slightly more optimistic tone. For anyone watching this, I mean, I'm curious to, especially for young people, what's your greatest message of sort of aspirational hope, and why should young people be excited to be contributors to a better tomorrow?
Because I think that life was designed and meant to be happy. And, aside from like conditions that we have, we all have things that we all have our own internal battles. But at the end of the day, we have one life to live. And the analogy that I like to think of is this. When this world started at the very, when there were cavemen, cave people, they stepped into a world that was filled with glass, essentially, right? Everywhere you step, it's dangerous. You've got animals chasing you. You need to stay with the group. If you don't stay with the group, you might as well be dead. And then over time, we've evolved, right? And the world became a safer place. We came out with new medicine and science and technology. All these things evolved, and we become better and better. And now that glass, with this world that was filled with glass when we first came into it, we're removing a lot of that glass, but there's still problems. There still are people, young people especially, that don't have the support and tools that they need. And part of that, removing more of that glass in that area, is to give those people the support and tools that they need, to acknowledge them, to not tell them that, they're worthless, to let them recognize their greatness and that they all have something important to contribute to this world, like you and I. And letting them know, and that's really the core of it. This is supposed to be a happy life. This is supposed to be. I don't like to, excuse me, have a. I don't have a blind eye to anything. I recognize the good and the bad, but it is supposed to be a good and happy life for everybody on this earth, and we should strive to make it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one final follow up to that point. I mean, I really believe that we all have the capability and the knowledge base to really take ownership of our own lives. Adversity is going to strike all of us, right, Avi? But it's important to remember when you pour that sort of foundational understanding on how you live your life to develop your own life principles and hold yourself to those principle standards for growth and expansion. Would you agree with that?
I do. And the way I think of it too, Kevin, is it's like this, right? Life, it's one long ongoing boxing match. We learn and achieve success through failure. Failure is part of the process of learning and achieving success. Without failure, we wouldn't be able to recognize prime opportunities. So it's actually very important that we do fail and we do it fast and we learn from it and we continue going on so that we can have more victories in the long run. So that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Avi, my final question for you has to do with your own sort of personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Now, I think it's different for each person. For me personally, I've always tried to just fit in, just be like my friends, just have a normal life, be like them. But there is no normal. That's just a conception made up it's a fallacy. It's something that's made up in our minds about what a good normal life should be. But my life has always been about standing out, not fitting in, to do bigger, better things that I didn't know I was capable of, but have done and will continue to do, and to be somebody that represents and stands for something greater than myself. And the best way that I could put it, Kevin, would be a quote by Bob Marley, which is, "The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively." Right? Because so much of our society is, we're broken down into classes. We got our lower class, we got our mid class, we got the upper class, but we should be striving to, break down these barriers, right? If we want to be a better society, breaking down those barriers and it being accepting and civilized towards each other, and agreeing to disagree that how we want to live or how our lives should be, at the basis of it, it's about freedom, right? Freedom to practice whatever religion we want to do whatever hobbies we want to do without judgment, without being criticized, and helping those around us, right? That's at the core of it. I think that's a brilliant quote, and I think that if I could have a legacy, it would be that I went out of my way to help people, to be the person that I wish I had to look up to when I was younger, but I didn't. To give people that hope and inspiration that they can be great in this life, that they can do amazing things, and that they have a purpose in this world. We all do, and to do something great and to leave a legacy and pave a way for a brighter future and for future generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me if people want to get connected with the great work that you do, my friend, what's the best and most effective way they can do that?
Yeah, you could reach me through my website, www.aviwolfson.com. That's my speaker website. I am also on LinkedIn. Um, I'm not sure if I know the link off the top of my head, but
I believe it's just your name, right?
yeah, it's just my name. LinkedIn/Avi Wolfson, something like that. Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and you can reach out to me on my website as well. Other channels I'm not very active on. That's where I spend most of my time, but those are great ways. And then also, I don't think that we would have necessarily connected, Kevin, if you didn't send me that link that you had to finding other great podcasts. I think that's a great way we connected. So, yeah, that's also something that just came to my mind.
Yeah, Avi, I always tell people that life is a constant game of networking, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. It absolutely is. And, without networking, we wouldn't have crossed paths, and we did. And it was for an important reason.
Absolutely. Well, I have to tell you, Avi, I'm sincerely grateful for your graciousness in spending a few minutes with me to talk about building a leadership toolbox and really maximizing potential, my friend. Your work in this space and time on my behalf is most appreciated. I want to thank you for both your friendship and for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Absolutely. It goes both ways, Kevin. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and all your thoughts and questions and ideas. Really a pleasure.